How's Banjo Guy Ollie?
He is an asshole.
Folks, how are you doing? So today we need to continue on our build of the Amiga 3000. The last time we got it to boot to the diagram first via serial, and then we populated a few more bits and we got it to boot into diagram through the RGB output. We set it up with an extra 16 megs of fast RAM, and we got audio out here, and we're able to control the diagram with the mouse. I think next in the guide, Chucky's guide, is controlling the floppy drive. So I'm not sure. I need to check out the guide now, see what's involved in this, and I'll get back to you and we'll do exactly that. What now?
This video is sponsored by PC.
No. We don't do that here.
They make the PCB.
Okay. They offer PCB manufacturing and part assembly, of course, but they also offer a number of other services like CNC machining, metal sheet fabrication, 3D printing, and even injection molding. Pretty much anything you need for all your projects. Go to PCBWay.com, upload your project files, and get an instant quote. And thank you to them for sponsoring this video. Thank you, PCBWay. Right, so I have now all the floppy stuff in, and I don't have a socket yet here for the DF0 floppy drive, but I've put the connector for my donor board, and I'm using just an adapter for Gotek here, and it's powering properly. Well, unfortunately, this power supply doesn't have any of these floppy connectors, these 4-pin floppy connectors, so I had to rig up one of these. But whoever made this cable connector for this Gotek, whenever I got it, I don't know, can't remember where I got it, but anyway, red here, typically I assume red is 5 volt, but in this case the 5 volt is the brown lead and the red was actually the 12. So when I plugged this in with an actual floppy drive, it fried it, and you can see here, let me see, you can see here, this IC just cooked. Oh god, there's not much, yeah, but there you go, and you can actually scratch here. It just fried. I sent 12 volt to the 5 volt rail, and this guy just cooked right away. This is an Alps drive that was modded to be compatible with the Amiga. Luckily, there's a guy selling a few of these locally, and so I'll see if I might be able to get my hands on it, and do. He's got 3 different drives that can be modded for the Amiga, so I might do a video on these. He's selling them for $5 each, so I gotta get them. But it should work with the floppy. Well, it should work. Let me explain myself. There is a drive test, but it's somewhat experimental, so we can test. Gary. Let's see the drive test here. So right now it's going to be set to DF0. It's not ready. There's no track. The other thing, compounding issue here, is I haven't set up this USB stick, so there's no image on it. But if I select this one, yes, at least it's telling me that it's ready, and it's detecting it. Yeah, disk 2, DF0, DF3, nothing. So it should indeed be set to DF1. And I think this is pretty much the only test I can do, because motor, well, we're not going to get much if I do a motor test. Yeah, there's nothing else to change side, step in and out. The idea is that you hear the drive or see the drive moving. This test, as it says, is experimental. It works on some machine. I'm not sure if the 3000 was a priority for Chucky to get it to work, and I'm not sure if the Gotek was a priority to get it to work. So we're gonna have to take it at face value. When I get a new drive and when I get this connector, we might do a test for the sake of doing a test for this video. But we have to assume that this is working. At least it's detecting the drive, so that's a good sign. Next, we have our parallel port to put in. I'm still waiting for these connectors, and we're gonna have to deal with the SCSI area here with the DMAC, which I happen to have. So I should get these connectors in a few days, but first you can see this parallel connector. This is actually a double parallel port. I've never seen those before, but just really quirky, but it's going to be interesting to fit in place. I might no, I don't think there's bend pins. No, we should be okay. And so we need to put that in, and as I said, the DMAC socket here. And as far as the DMAC is concerned, what we have is a super DMAC. If you know, you know. These things don't come often, and they don't come cheap. And again, I have to thank Chucky for this, for sorting me out with one of those. Thank you again, dude. Alright, so we got the super DMAC in place, our parallel port here, and the other thing, I'm still waiting for these connectors here, but we can't really test SCSI on its own with the diagram. There's no test for that in diagram anyway. So next, I think we need to start looking at the real-time clock and put the connector for the Zorro connector. The guy does recommend putting those caps before you do that, though, so we're going to do that next. Putting all those caps in, especially these 4, I think, because they're SMD and they're going to be hard to solder otherwise if we don't do that. So let's do that now. I've got the Zorro connector in. I put these caps here, and I should say, really, I would put them, at least put this one in and this one in before you put this guy, because it is a right pain, regardless, even with a thin tip. It's just very annoying to put in, but they're in, and I just went ahead and put at least the 47 caps. There's quite a few of them. I've just unrolled with them, and I hate these things. I hate putting SMD caps in, so while you do one, you know, it doesn't hurt to do the others. Also, SCSI is not going to work. We need this IC in. Let's see if a slightly bent pin here. There you go. Oh yeah, we also need Buster. Alright, quick update. I put in the Zorro slot and I put in 2 Kickstart ROMs. They're gone now, and I was greeted to a yellow screen. Typically, the yellow screen would appear if you forget the Zorro slot, for example, or a few other things. And I was scratching my head for a while. So then I reached out to Chucky, and he said to remove the fast RAM and see if it does the same stuff. There might be issues with compatibilities between certain types of RAMs, but nope, still a yellow screen. Alright, so I tried a few things. I ended up testing continuity on this, just cleaning the legs of the DMAC and just pulling the legs of the socket to make sure I get good contact between the DMAC and the socket, and I do now. I also check continuity all around for each pin, just make sure that they were going to the right place. They do, and still no luck. So I was talking to somebody, and they said try these ROMs. Essentially, these are Kickstart ROMs, but they're debug ROMs, and they output to while running Kickstart, they output to serial, and they give you an idea of what's happening while you're booting to Kickstart, and you'll see that at some point it stops. But I just want to, you know, just show you, like, it goes to loading all the different libraries and that kind of stuff. And the thing with the 3000 is that it needs the DMAC to boot because it checks for a CSI and it won't go any further. And indeed, here, the last few lines before, can I zoom in, or is my camera very dirty? Probably is. The last thing we fail on, or we check and we halt here, is the SCSI device and handler. It can mean a number of things. Well, it means one thing is that we're failing at the SCSI check that's required to boot into Kickstart. So our machine is fine, just our SCSI circuit, or SCSI circuit. People get annoyed when I say SCSI, sorry. SCSI circuit. And so we could have either just a bad controller board, so I'm just going to check with another one. I mean, I hate to say it, it's probably likely that I have a dead DMAC. I also talked to Chucky and I said, can I send it to you and just double check that it's dead or not working, and at least that way we'll know. Alright, so some time has passed and we tried a few things between Stephen and Chucky and myself, and I did actually check continuity on every single point of the socket. You can see little blue markers here wherever I tested each pin. Some of the markers are faded, but tested continuity of the socket to wherever it's going, and then continuity between, which was kind of tricky. I had to use the microscope not to get false negative by just touching the pin twice, but testing between the continuity between the socket and the Agnes chip, and everything was fine. So it wasn't a bad socket, or it wasn't connections not going to the right place. I replaced the SCSI control SCSI control IC, and I was getting the same result. So Stephen mentioned something. He said, you can probably use an Amiga 5000 ROM set on this, because it doesn't look for a DSCSI or SCSI to be present. And I haven't tried that, but what he ended up doing is modifying the 3000 to ignore SCSI when it boots, and this is the end result of that. We have, I had the floppy connected because I tested it before, but there you go. We're booting now to floppy SCSI. It's completely ignored. I'm gonna switch this off. I just want to show you the Kickstart screen, but we're indeed now going straight to Kickstart, ignoring SCSI. That means right now I don't have a DMAC, and I can't really boot to. My goal was to use one of those Zulu SCSI type devices to boot into the workbench image, but not having a DMAC, I can't quite do that. There's two options left. One, we can get an ID card for the Zorro, which is, it's a great option. It's a good option. The other one that I haven't talked about, I hinted at it, is getting an accelerator card. And as I'm recording this, it's been announced, but the TF4060 is out, and it will work on the 3000. So if I get an accelerator card here, I need a connector first, but getting an accelerator card here, and I should be able then to use the IDE slot there to boot off an IDE, whatever, Complex Flash or whatever IDE device I use in this case, to boot into Workbench, bypassing the whole SCSI drive problem here. So that means I don't need a DMAC, and I just need something, some other interface to boot in my case. But there you go. So let's continue. We still have, this is great news. I was stuck for weeks on this. We still have the issue of the video getting that sort of whatever VGA connector and getting the flicker fixer stuff sorted. So I still have parts to put in here. We've Amber to put in. So we still have a bit of work left on this board, and then we have all the caps, the rest of the caps to populate, the actual more electrolytics here that I missed, and we've got a few true hole caps to put in. I ended up sending the DMAC back to Chucky for him to check that it works, because I had no way to know whether that was indeed the problem. The good news is the DMAC is working. So whatever issue is happening, it's not because of the DMAC. From looking around, I've heard that this clock, I think it's this one, not this one, but I think it is this one. The new ones, the newer versions of that, can be somewhat unstable with some jitter, and that can cause the DMAC to not work properly, and therefore the whole thing to not to boot. The other thing I've heard is this IC here can or has to some people cause issues, and replacing they had to replace them with an LS version. This is a 74F74, I think, IC1C, and replaced it with a 74 LS type 74, and it did help. This is all anecdotal from people on the Amiga Facebook group, and but you know, sometimes that's what these groups are for, helping each other build those machines. So I will try that. I'll test that the clock is stable first, and what people have found, I think there's been 2 people that have reported that using the old clock from an old machine, an original machine, instead of a new one, actually fixed the issue, fixed the jitter. So we might have issues with an unstable newer crystals or clocks. But the DMAC is working, so right now I won't use the DMAC, and I know there is projects to repro the DMAC. I might go down that route down the line for the sake of completion, but like I said, the goal here is to use an accelerator card and boot off the ID connector on the accelerator card. Alright, so next, as I said, we need to populate this area for the Ficker Flixer and the VGA output. But in order to do that properly, we need to populate all those caps. So I'm going to do that first, and then put sockets everywhere that need sockets. But there's a good few caps still to left to put across the board. So I'll do that all at once. There's no point just doing the few around here. It'll be easier if they're all down. And there's a few SMD caps missing as well. Alright, so we got the sockets in. I need to solder this in place. Actually, I'm going to take this off for now. There's one thing we need to do as well, is populate this trim capacitors. Chucky warns that there is a batch of these PCBs, the first batch, which this is one of them it seems, where this hole here is connected to this pad and is connected to maybe this pin, and goes to here. Essentially, this hole here is connected internally to the ground plane. That shouldn't be the case. So what we'll need to do is to cut the trace here, and I'm not sure if you can see it properly. Let's zoom in. We need to cut the trace right here and cut the connection between the pad here and the hole. So the hole is essentially isolated, so ground is coming out of here. So we need to disconnect this and this from ground, and ultimately whatever pin here. So we have to cut two trace right here, which is incredibly thin, and this trace here. Alright, that's that done. Next thing, we need to populate. I'm going to populate this guy here, and there's a 10 microfarad tantalum cap that needs to be populated here. But essentially, once we've put the trim cap here, we need to reconnect this pin, this pad here, to this guy here. Essentially, we wanted to isolate the ground coming out of here from these two guys. So we really need to reconnect these two together. And in typical Ollie fashion, I seem to have misplaced this guy. So while I look for it, I'm going to populate the rest of this here. So Amber, I'm going to put all the ICs in. We need that VGA connector. We need a switch here, and we need the trim resistor right here. So the switch will allow us to switch between those modes, 31k hertz and 15k standard RGB, and the trim pot will allow us to get that kind of right value for the horizontal sync. So that's going to be, according to Chucky, it's a bit tricky and just a pain really to get right. So anyway, so let's finish populating this. Oh yeah, we need also the other, I've removed it from now, but we need the other DAC here, which I have, and this time I got the proper socket for it. So well, it seems I'm cursed with this machine. Well, the machine is fine, but I was just about to sit down with my scope to do some measurements on this clock, and also I need to adjust the RTC and the trim pot for the video. And I was greeted to the smell of burning reefer caps on my oscilloscope, and this is the power supply. I just took it apart, and if you look here, I mean, there's no mistaking what that smell is, but this one indeed here just blew up, and it's cracked at the bottom. So it's not just one but two, so that's another disaster waiting to happen. So I'm gonna take this, and there's another one here actually. Brilliant. So we're gonna have to replace 3 reefer caps because well, these are notorious for doing exactly that. Yep, she's gone. All right, I got the caps changed. Didn't quite have the right size, but these are essentially filter caps over sort of the mains. So I replaced, this one is the correct value, 0.47 microfarad. This one was 0.33 microfarad, which should be fine, and the third one, which is now hidden, is another 4.7. It was a much lower value, but that's all I had, and yeah, we're back working. Whew. Okay, so the scope is fixed, or at least the power supply. It's all working fine. I haven't had any issue. Right now I am trimming, or I've put in place, where is it, this little trim cap here, and I've done the little modification that Chucky recommends on some revision. Some don't have that issue, so just make sure that you look like that hole here, that it's not connected to here or here, and if it is, you need, like I said, you need to cut the traces and just bridge the trim cap to that other cap. Anyway, everything is I think somewhat correct. I'm getting it's not super stable, but it's around 14.1, and if I switch on VGA, there you go. So we got actually very clean VGA output. So it's working, RGB is working, and we got the RTC setup. And I think next I need to measure the clock over there for that DMAC SCSI issue that we're getting. Yes, it's interesting indeed. So I'm measuring this clock at this IC here, the 74 F74. So here should be 50 hertz, 25 I think, and 14 should be here. If we check the 25, it's clean, it's relatively stable. Don't mind the frequency changing here. What's actually important is the visual more than anything else. Here's same thing, it's relatively stable. If I go to the 14 though, you can see some jitter, irregularities, and that's far from ideal from what I heard. So I suspect I'm getting that similar issue where this clock sourced from Mouser is not quite ideal for the job, and people have reported that using the original clock from an original Amiga 3000, which sort of defeats the purpose of this build, but never mind. And sometimes an LS74LS fixes the issue. So I'm going to try that first, 74LS. I'm not sure if it's fully compatible though, but they reported that the machine booted afterwards. Right now it doesn't really matter because I don't have a DMAC anymore. I give that back to Chucky and he's going to use it for his own projects and I don't quite need it. So let me just try that first to see if we get a cleaner maybe output. Okay, so I can report that the LS74 don't work. The system just wouldn't boot with one of those in, so it obviously needs the timings of an F. But if I check the 14 pin, which is this pin here, the second last one here, and this is a much cleaner signal. Yeah, this is the old IC, and yeah, it's super jittery and just not a happy signal. If I'm going to switch this off and replace it with a fresh new one, the one we just put in. I'll see if I can even have the two signals side by side for comparison. I mean, yeah, this is a much cleaner signal. So maybe, I mean, this would make sense because this clock is essentially, what is it, 50 hertz or megahertz, sorry, and this takes the 50, gets a 25 out of it and a 14. So could it be that this was the reason why we weren't getting a clean signal, a 14 megahertz clean signal, and our DMAC wasn't working properly because of that? Possibly. Yeah, possibly. I don't have a way to verify anyway, but down the line, when the repros hopefully become available, we'll go down that route and we'll sort out the part of the circuit. But anyway, for now, folks, we have our RTC, we have our video out to VGA and RGB signal, and the only thing we're missing is how to boot from a disk image. This is where this is coming handy. I've put the connector here. Chucky sorted me out with one of those, so thank you very much. Because for the next video, and we're going to stop this video here, for the next video we are going to build a 4060 Terrible Fire 4060 accelerator card, and hopefully boot off that. Folks, I think this is plenty for this one. Thank you very much for watching. I hope this was interesting. We're getting there. We have, well, we have a working system, fair to say. We just need a way to boot off an image. Folks, thank you for watching. Don't forget you can find me on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook under Banjo Guy Ollie. And if you want to help the channel, there's always a Patreon and YouTube memberships. Folks, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.